Welcome to this week's episode of the Top Podcast. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Rob. Joined with me are my friends Mike.
Not you speaking first. What's up?
And Lou.
Shalom.
And Mike, before we get started, Cantwell had some breaking news. I don't know if you've heard I'd say breaking. It's been like a few weeks, but I keep on forgetting to bring it up on the pod. But I don't know if you heard, Backyard Sports is back.
Oh, baby. Yes, I am well aware, and I am so excited.
It's baseball, right? They're bringing back.
I think baseball is coming first, but it read like they're all coming eventually.
Okay.
So, and even if they don't, baseball's the big one. I'm sure if it's successful enough, they'll roll something else out. But yeah, one of my favorite posts so far has been somebody saying, if Backyard baseball has online multiplayer, I'm never leaving the house again.
That'd be a hard game to play multiplayer. I guess if I'm going off like the original Backyard Baseball, it's probably evolved since then.
Yeah, my guess is it would just be head to head, like 1v1. So one person would be pitching, one person would be hitting, and then it would take the place of the AI. You wouldn't play like a full team.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
But even so, head to head would be actually really cool.
Mm-hmm. Whoever gets first pick though, is picking Pablo.
Right?
They might have to nerf him if there's multiplayer.
I was like, they're gonna have to nerf Pablo.
Yeah, that was something I heard. Was they suggested just having a second, either having a second character or having one, or like making like one character really good at hitting and one character really good at pitching, so you have like a way to combat Pablo essentially.
To keep it topical for this last week's pod, there's Pablo and Pabla.
Oh, there you go.
I was gonna make that joke, but I didn't know if it was that was too great too.
And then everyone's gonna get upset about the nerf, and it's gonna have to be Poblex.
Well, this week the question icebreaker is actually something I ran into today, and I want to know. Oh gosh, how did I phrase it? Basically, what is a hook, a plot hook or blurb of a story that you heard for a movie, could be a book or anything, and you're just like, I have to read this book or watch this movie. So I'll start off first. I was listening to a Matt Colville podcast, and he's talking about how he likes this author called Tim Powers. I've never read him or anything, so I can't speak for his work, but he's like, yeah, you should check out this book. And he said the plot is this guy gets sent back to like 1800s London, and then he's walking around, but then he knows he's in this huge crowd full of people, and he hears someone whistling Yesterday by the Beatles, so he knows he's not the only time traveler. And then it just like gets crazy from there. And I'm like, I have to read that book now, because that just sounds so interesting and cool.
I have this rule where if the Beatles are a heavy point in the plot, I'm not interested.
I think it's just, I don't know if they're heavy. I haven't read it, but it's The Anubis Gates by Tim Powers.
Badass title. So, oh my gosh, I had two and I just lost them both. Luke, go.
Okay. I feel like something like this I would be absolutely terrible at explaining, but I'm gonna do my best. So, I kept getting this keep seeing this meme of a dog girl put together in this anime, and I was like, what is this abomination? And I found out it was this
Furry Fest?
Nope. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And then I found out that it was considered one of the best animes of all time. And then once I did the research on it, because I kind of told myself, I guess, that the idea is that there are two brothers who was raised by a single mom, and then that single mom dies, and then they try to bring her back to life, but because it's alchemy and they need a equivalent exchange, they ended up almost killing themselves, and then their brother gets trapped. His brother's body gets absolutely completely destroyed. It has to be put into a plate of armor, and then the older brother loses his arm and his leg, and then they have to find a way to bring his brother's body back to life.
Whoa.
Boom.
I'm surprised you have not seen Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I know that's like it seems like that's one of the biggest animes.
Based on the description Lou just gave and the title that Rob just said, I'm surprised that those aren't the same thing.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Last Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and the description where the brother almost dies and becomes fused into a piece of armor. I'm like, oh, clearly that has to be the plot of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Like, that just makes sense to me. Apparently, I'm way off.
No, that that is.
Yeah,
That's what we're
fair.
saying.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying it's not Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood? Did I completely miss the?
Wait,
I'm very confused. Also, the question is we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's like, or I mean, it could have been something in the past.
oh yeah, because I was gonna say I've seen both
Yeah.
my
Okay.
picks here, but
Have
when I heard it, I was like, I got to.
Have you seen Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Lou?
3 times. Yeah.
Okay, and that was the story you were talking about, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Like,
That
one
makes
of
more
us
sense.
has a
I thought-
disconnect here.
I thought Rob said that Lou had not seen that, and I was like, how has he not seen it if he just described something that could only possibly be the same? Okay.
Well, he said he did his
My bad.
research,
That was
so I
me.
guess maybe that's watching it, but you know.
Yeah. So I have 2. One of them far more serious than the other. Ironically, they're very much linked. They both have the same character. The first one is Last Voyage of the Demeter. Rob might have been the one to point me in the direction of this film.
Never heard of it.
Okay, it must have been Jacob then. You know that one chapter in Dracula where it's the ship's log of the boat that takes Dracula from Transylvania to London?
Yep.
It's like the best chapter in the whole book. It's a movie.
Dang.
And it's really good. It's not. I was a little underwhelmed by the character story overall. But at the same time, it felt a little bit like Alien on a boat. And I really enjoyed it. The other one where all I needed was the title, actually, because the title is the premise. And I was like, I need to watch that right now, is The Batman vs. Dracula.
What now?
Oh, yeah. It's a full-length animated movie.
Scooby-Doo?
Batman from the Batman series and Dracula from Dracula. And Batman takes on Dracula, and it's low-key kind of a good movie. But yeah, I heard that premise, and I was just like, I'm in right now. Let's do it.
It's like Alien vs. Predator. You have to see it.
Exactly. Another good one was Batman vs. Aliens. Fantastic comic series.
Yeah, I think I thought I thought there was a Batman Predator tie-in too. Maybe I'm tripping.
I'm sure there is, but
There's just a Batman with everything. I always love every now and then you'll find them on the internet. It's like a Star Wars mixed with aliens, so it's just like Darth Vader on this heap of xenomorphs, and like the Queen xenomorph is in front of him. And all that. It's really cool art.
that'd be pretty sick, actually.
All right. Well, this week's topic comes from it's a fan topic from Ben, and he wants to know, what are our top 5 stories, any medium, that were the most impactful to you. I'll start out with my number 5, and man, I am having a hard time figuring out where to put things on this list. So we're gonna go with the Dark Brotherhood storyline from the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. I don't know how many of you guys have played any of the Elder Scrolls, especially most people play Skyrim, but have not played the previous entries. But basically, the Dark Brotherhood is like the Assassin's Guild, where you're a hired contract killer and you have to go out. And there's just so many like deep and character moments, and then there's this twist at the end that just like puts everything in this completely different context that like I just didn't see coming. And now like every single like guild line in every Elder Scrolls game is compared to the Dark Brotherhood quest line in Oblivion, and like Skyrim doesn't even come close to touching it. And I just feel like it's at such a staple that now I'm expecting that's like the bar to clear. So it impacted me in that way, where this is just like, if it's better than this, then it's going to be amazing. But like, this is the what I expect from, especially like an Assassin's Guild line with the crazy twists and all that. It's just almost perfect in every way. So that one has really impacted me and what I'm looking for in video games.
I've never played Oblivion, but it sounds really cool.
Yeah, for you, it's Oblivion's really jank, especially going back. I think it came out in 2006 for the 360. I think you would probably find like if someone did like a storyline of it, I think you would find that interesting. I don't know if you would enjoy the gameplay.
Maybe I'll find a watch or a playthrough.
Yeah, just with the games you like, I don't know if Oblivion would be up your alley.
That's fair. That's fair.
I didn't like the fact that I started in a prison.
That's all Elder Scrolls games, or most of them. You start in some form of captivity.
You know, you might like Lou. Have you ever played Dark Souls 1?
Also starts in prison.
It does
Well,
also start in a prison, sure.
Yeah, that was the joke.
Oh, I just
Hey.
didn't even... Now, do you kill the guy or do you let him die? That's...
I think I let him die. I don't know.
You gotta mark him.
Wouldn't he just come back though? Wouldn't it be even worse?
No, he's just dead.
Oh,
You
I
take
thought
his
he was
soul.
also had not tarnished, but whatever the equivalent is. Mike, what's
Oh, you're talking about the knight in Dark Souls 1.
the very
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, I usually kill him just because it's quicker. He comes back either way.
See, told you.
Does
Lou.
he come back?
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, he comes back if you go back to the fortress. Like if you go up the tower and then you sit and just wait in the nest, and then the crow brings you back, and then you manned your way through. He comes back then.
Did not know that.
Yeah, it's a good fight. It's not hard, but he's fun.
What's your number 5, Mike?
Uh,
It's like this guy from Dark Souls really impacted me.
my number 5 is the movie Saw.
Oh my gosh. I'm not gonna do it. I thought about it.
I probably wouldn't put it on. Oh, you're good, man. I probably wouldn't put it on my top 5 horror movie lists. It'd be a serious considerer. Like I'd consider it, but I don't think it would make the cut. But it'd probably make top 10. And while I still really like the movie, and I think it's one of the better entries in the whole franchise, which is 10 movies long now, by the way.
Oof.
What really made it something that just changed me, which 4 out of 5 of my my stories are definitely things that have a tangible you can point to and be like, there's a change here. Is it just kicked off my love of horror movies, and specifically horror movies with twist endings. It's I think it's a fantastic twist. I think it's well earned. I think it's pretty well foreshadowed in a way that you're just never gonna guess. Yeah, I love it, and I probably wouldn't be the horror fan that I am today without Saw. So
When he saw, changed his life.
I did.
Which is that your favorite twist out of the whole series?
Ooh,
Is it 7?
Series.
7 is a pretty good twist too. The end of like the original series.
The end of 7 is the only good thing about 7.
Yeah, that's it.
And it is a really good twist. I enjoyed the end of 6. I thought the end of 4 was really brilliant. It was the only one that I didn't understand and had to look up, and I was like, whoa.
That's the one with the Matt Damon lookalike.
2 was really good. Yeah.
The ice block.
4 was the one where
No,
the black guy was the black cop was the main character, who was like going through all the games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other thing I really like about Saw 1 is it's not like it's brutal, but it's not as gory as the rest of the franchise. Like it's got a dark and kind of grimy tone to it. But it was only after 2 that it really started to get like,
oh, that needle
and
pit
even
too.
Yeah, the needle pit's like the worst thing I've ever seen. It haunts my nightmares. But even then, 2 was more like grimy, that it was gory. 3 was getting there, and then 4 on it just like jump. I don't want to say jump the shark, but like it just became more about the gore than it did the story.
Yeah, the only thing is with the first Saw movie, it made me question if Carrie Ewells could actually act. I'm guessing
No, he overacts like nobody's business.
I'm sure it was
in
a
that
director's
movie.
choice.
I mean, the director was James Wan, who's no slouch. But he also could, at the same time, though, it's like it's their first movie. It's also their first script. So it's very possible that it was just like I heard an argument on Heed the Call podcast where Dan Hansis was talking about the Wicker Man with oh my gosh, the guy from The Rock and Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent and that episode of Community where Abed takes the class to find out if the actor's good or bad.
Oh, I know it until
Yeah.
It is.
No, it's the guy from National Treasure.
That one too.
Nicolas Cage.
Thank you.
Oh, really?
Jeez.
You were looking for Nicolas Cage?
I was looking for Nicolas Cage. I'm sure all of our listeners were screaming it at us. Me. Yeah, but so like his argument for The Wicker Man wasn't that it was necessarily a good movie, but the scene where Nick Cage is like, "Oh no, not the bees!" Like, and it's like a widely just ridiculed scene for how bad it is. When you stop and think about it, it's like CGI was still relatively new, and it was like, okay, Nick Cage, sit here and pretend in front of a camera that we're letting bees out on you. And it's like, I get it, you're an actor, your job is to be good at acting, but also like that's got to be a really hard thing to do without some kind of like stimulation on your face to like let you feel like, oh, you know, there's like at least rub some hot sauce on your face and make it burn a little bit, you know, like to just show up and do that sounds really difficult. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe they were just in a position where it's like, how do you even play this role? It's such a weird and out of the box thing. Or maybe Cary Ellis is just not an A-list actor.
I don't know. He's pretty good with Robin Hood Men in Tights, his most well-known movie.
Is it really more well-known than The Princess Bride?
That was the joke, Mike.
Oh, okay. Well, I just
no.
Everybody I know seems to know Men in Tights, so I just assumed. I was like, oh, well, maybe it is.
No, I think Princess Bride is his defining.
Whoops. We're totally on the same wavelength tonight, boys.
Lou, have you seen any of the Saw movies?
I begrudgingly am. Yeah.
Not a fan.
Yeah. I man. Yeah, I am and I'm not. You know, yeah.
I 100% understand that. As someone who would identify as a fan, I still completely understand.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I feel.
All right.
Now, what I will say is 10, one of the best ones in the series by like a good margin. Like the whole front end of the movie was just like actually a good movie. And it was like beautiful, and there was like a lot of really cool scenery and like cinematography. It was a trip.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was weird.
Well, Lou, what's your number 5?
So I'm surprised nobody said this already, but this is definitely not my top 5 all-time favorite stories because my brain doesn't work the way it does, and it's just impossible to come up with the most impactful things just in a week. I feel like I need a month to really.
It was like, so behind the scenes we recorded last episode
it was like
on Friday,
3 days, yeah.
And I was talking with my wife yesterday. She's like, "Are you doing the pod tomorrow?" I'm like, "Wait, no, we just recorded." And I'm like, "Oh crap, it is Tuesday tomorrow." So,
yeah,
it came out of nowhere, and Monday was a holiday, so I wasn't like, yeah.
I had to make my list.
So like I made Friday the list the best I can.
Yeah. All right, hit us.
Oh, okay, yeah. So my number 5 is an interesting one because I tend to not take any media in, but unless I'm researching it. It's very rarely I come in cold on anything. Video games, movies, books. I'm always researching them before. So I have a general idea what I'm watching or what I'm reading because I don't really want to waste my time on something crazy. I'm doing that with a book right now, and I found out the kid has cancer, and that's like majority of the book.
Wow, we read 2 different Way of Kings.
You just read it wrong, Rob.
I guess so. I missed that part in the audiobook.
Yeah, I was yeah. So an amazing movie that I had no idea what I was doing and I was just bored on a Tuesday is a movie called Wind River. And I'm hesitant to even share too much about it. It is insane because Scarlet Witch and the guy who does Bow and Arrow, they're both in it. What's the guy's name?
Hawkeye?
Hawkeye, yes.
Jeremy
Hawkeye
Renner.
And
yes.
Scarlett Johansson? Oh, no, it's Scarlet Witch. No, that's Black Widow. I don't know.
That's Black Widow.
Other
but
white
both of
woman.
them are in it. Another white woman. Yeah, sure.
That narrows it down.
You can Elizabeth Olsen. Fun fact. Generally, I'm gonna the little bit of part of the movie that I do want to share is that it has Native American roots to it and how Native Americans are treated. And I just think it does a beautiful job. It's beautifully shot, beautifully done. Uh, I can't say too much about it because I do want you to watch it. Also, the Punisher is also in it. Fun fact.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
what's his name? John something?
John Cena.
Not Cena. Yeah, that guy plays a good a-hole character. I don't know if that's what he is in the movie, but
He is not that, but
He was also really good in The Bear. In
Yeah.
his very limited
brother.
appearance, he was really cool. Yeah.
yeah.
Also-
Well, it's not very limited to that one episode.
also great in Fury. World War II tank movie.
John Berthal
That's what it is.
has a pretty decent podcast too. I enjoyed most of his stuff. He doesn't believe in naps though, and I just don't rock with that.
Do you think most of the people are listening because they think it's John Cena? No?
Don't-
Okay.
I don't
Bad
know.
joke.
Our podcast.
no, his
no,
podcast. Probably like it's Shane from The Walking Dead.
Sometimes I forget that we don't edit anymore, and I can't just take every single swing at a joke I think of, and then we just trim out the ones that flop.
You said you like it when a joke doesn't land sometimes. So
It's one of my favorite things, personally.
that air is
When I do love listening to a podcast when somebody makes a joke and it just doesn't hit. That tickles me to no end. So I'm just giving you the show I'd want to listen to.
There we go. Be be what you want to see in the world. It's not really a change, but you know.
More podcasts should have bad jokes.
There you go. So my number 4 is actually kind of a twist on this, and it negatively impacted my life.
Ooh.
And depending
Jaws.
on what
What?
I don't know what you said, but whatever. Depending on what group I'm with, this is almost always brought up, and we rant at least an hour about it, just reliving it. But The Last Jedi effing ruined Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Well, to be fair, it was the start of the end for Star Wars. I remember we were all so hyped to go see this movie. We had opening night tickets and all that. We were so hyped. Then we're in the theater. And Leia, I don't know if I told this story in the podcast, but Leia does her Mary Poppins in space because somehow she, even though it's not been hinted at all through the movies, she's now like a Force user and can do some pretty, like, creates a Force shield around herself and somehow survives the vacuum and cold of space. But anyways, she just like Mary Poppins herself into the ship, and I just lift my hands and say, "What the f?" But you know the full thing because I was a big Star Wars nerd, and then Rian Johnson just continues the crap on the legacy of Star Wars, and there are some things I didn't mind. I'm okay with Rey being a no one. I actually preferred that instead of what she ended up being, a freaking Palpatine, which makes no sense, but okay, whatever. You see, I get salty about it, but this was just, I felt like I was watching my childhood die, which I think in a way he was going for, but it's like something so beloved I had was ruined, and now I just don't care about Star Wars. I think that's the worst. Like, you would rather have fans that are angry at the IP than most Star Wars fans are now just like, I don't even care. They're just apathetic. Not even fans, but they're apathetic. And that's like the worst thing you do. They completely like churn the fan base. And that was the start of it right there was The Last Jedi. And I still kind of hold the grudge against Rian Johnson. I still haven't watched Knives Out, much to Mike's recommendations of watching Knives Out, but that came out like right after that, and it was definitely a protest of not going to see it. So,
Knives Out, really good. Glass Onion, phenomenal.
Yeah, and I know there was some hotly debated topic, especially like Hot Kyle. I know when we first started hanging out at the movie, it's pretty fresh, and we had some more not heated, but we had some intentional discussions about it. And I think even now he's kind of turned that that wasn't the best movie and everything. And then besides all the Star Wars fandom that it ruined, it was a second movie in a trilogy. It just like completely killed the big bad guy and just ruined everything. And was not a fan. And the spoiler for The Last Jedi. The decision to kill Luke at the end was a last minute, like in editing decision. And there's this conspiracy theory that they didn't tell Mark Hamill, because there's at the premiere where he was at, when he walks out, there's video of it, and he just looks dumbfounded, like he doesn't know what just happened and everything. So
I didn't shoot that scene.
yeah. So I that's my headcanon. Whether it's true or not, we'll never find out. And even he hated The Last Jedi, but that's my number 4.
He was so pompous in that movie. You could just feel it. It was really weird.
That's what he wanted. He said he said in interviews leading up to it, which I didn't. Maybe I just didn't see, but he's like, yeah, I had to pretend like I was Jake Skywalker because this character wasn't Luke Skywalker anymore. So it's like,
yeah, Disney's. He basically was saying he had to pretend he was a different character because the character they wanted him to play wasn't the character he played the first time.
And I think like an old kind of like angry Luke could have worked, but they don't do anything. There's definitely no build up to it. Like in the first one, it would have needed a lot longer than, oh, I just had this bad dream once, and then I now I'm at the dark side. Or now I hate the Force and everything, and it wasn't a good setup. Kind of like season 8 of Game of Thrones, but we're not gonna open that can of worms. All right, I know you guys aren't the biggest Star Wars fans, so Mike, what's your number 4?
Well, I just want to say thank you to Ryan Johnston for doing the good work and driving more and more people away from that franchise. You, sir, are a hero and should be celebrated.
You also like J.J. Abrams from perfecting Star Trek too?
Hey, man, I liked all 3 of J.J. Abrams' Star Treks a lot. I stand by all those movies.
So I know a lot of fans didn't, but he ruined 2-star movies, 2-star IPs, Star Wars.
Yeah,
Star Trek.
I think. Well, okay. I'll take the bait. The thing that people struggle with Star Trek is that it is a franchise that has spanned decades, and it is not the same from decade to decade. It evolves. It becomes something different. It is inherently a social commentary. And like, in the same way that we don't want a full movie of like, let's go to the planet where these people are at war and half the planet is white on one side and black on the other side, and the other half is black on one side and white on the other side. And like we've moved past that analogy. Or we might have gone in such a big circle that we're back to a point where we need that analogy. But the point being, like, they're mad that it's not the same, but they wouldn't actually like it as much as they think they would if it stayed the same. It needs to be something different in new iterations, and I thought they did a very good job with it personally. But anyway, Name of the Wind. So my number 4 is the book Name of the Wind. It's a fantasy book that I really, really like. Rob's read it. Becca read it. I know Becca really liked it. Rob, I think you were on it, if I recall.
I think it's overrated. I enjoyed it, but I think it receives a lot of praise. I don't think it lives up to what the fantasy community in general has painted it to be.
That's fair.
Thought it was enjoyable, but not like to die for.
Yeah. The thing I liked about it, well, there was a lot, but I had basically I was right at the point of giving up on trying to write, because I couldn't make the tone of my writing sound on paper the way it did in my head. Like I just couldn't get, there was like a block. I couldn't get what was in my head on the page. And I read The Name of the Wind, and it just like unlocked something. The way that Patrick Rothfuss tells story, but also world builds on a minute level. And also the way that he weaves his prose are just fantastic and beautiful, and just they do something to me. I like the way he makes up little phrases, and it's been a long enough time since I've read it that I can't even remember them, but just little things, or like he'll say things like where a normal person would be like, they sat around the fire talking about nothing. Patrick Rothfuss will say they spent hours around the campfire speaking of little things. And just like those little differences in the way he phrases something I think are so beautiful. And it was exactly like I read that book, and the next time I sat down to write it, it was just like, oh my gosh, it like that was the extra piece in the big jumble crock pot of my brain that I needed to start being able to put what I want on the page. And so while I do think they're really, really good fantasy stories and way better even on reread, um, the reason that it changed me was it was the story that taught me to write, essentially.
Think we're ever gonna get book 3?
No.
Yeah.
I would love to. I don't think we will.
I put out a poll on our YouTube thing. It's like, what do you think we're gonna get first? It was it the stone door, right? I googled it beforehand. Is that
Doors of Stone, I believe. Yeah.
Doors of Stone, Winds of Winter, Half-Life 3, and like one other video game. And it was no one voted for the Doors of Stone.
No. One of my stories even I even make a joke about that I describe one of the characters like just massive bookshelves and there's all sorts of little like comments about my own literary opinions that seep through. But one of the jokes was that she has completed her set of the King Killer Chronicles by just putting a brick where the third book should go, because it ain't happening.
Have you thought of reading Game of Thrones, like the books?
I have not.
Because they're very similar. Martin does he has surprisingly really good prose, and he does like the minute world building and just like throws something out, and he has so many like quotable like words are wind and things like that, and just I didn't know if that would be an interest to you. It's a very similar style.
I haven't been itching for fantasy in a while. I've been if anybody's got any good 8-hour audiobook thrillers, send them my way, because I read one called Hidden Pictures. I put it down in like 2 days, and I feel incomplete now that I've finished that book. Like I'm just itching for something else that'll kind of fill that specific void. So yeah, thrillers with good twists. Let us know in the comments.
Lou, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is something really cheesy. When I thought about this, I wanted to think about the things that affected me as a child. And one of the biggest books that I read as a child that made me want to just play football till my heart gave out was this book called The Tim Tebow Through My Eyes.
Written by Tim Tebow?
Objection! No way.
No.
It's like absolutely no way.
Mike's a big in the Tebow time. Hates Peyton Manning for taking Tebow's spot.
That was pretty funny.
Sorry, good on myself.
I've been a Tim Tebow fan for the longest time, and when he was trying to play tight end for the Eagles, I feel like I was the only one.
It was the Jags with Urban Meyer.
No, it was definitely for the Eagles, was it not?
I'll get the you continue. I'll get the intern on it.
Oh, okay, I appreciate that. So the only book I wouldn't say I bought all of his books. So I just found out he wrote like 13 of them. But as I was becoming a Christian, I found out Tim Tebow was also a Christian. And yeah, I was just a Tim Tebow fan. And one of the highlights of the book that I think absolutely destroyed me as a child, and I definitely didn't. I kind of wish I didn't read it. Was that in his playing high school ball? Did he actually play for the Eagles? Right?
He did. Yeah, in 2015, he was in the preseason for the Eagles.
But then he
also
was
2020, he also was a tight end during preseason for the Jaguars. So the confusion was warranted. Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. I mean, all this to say, Tim Tebow played on a broken leg in high school, and
dang.
It was a complete break, and he won the game. And I was like, I need to do this. And I hurt my knee one year. My senior year, I hurt my knee, and instead of just sitting it out because it was only a preseason game, I played the whole game.
Oh no!
And I absolutely destroyed my knee. and I had to sit out 2 actual in-season games because I didn't sit out in a preseason game. And that's because of Tim Tebow. So thank you, Tim Tebow. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's definitely Tim's fault that you did that.
Yeah.
I'd like to clarify that Tebow was a quarterback for the Eagles, but no. He also played on the Jets and the Broncos, obviously, is what he's playing for.
Okay, that makes more sense. Because did he wear 11?
Yeah, I look at a picture. Yeah, 11 for
Okay,
the Eagles.
yeah. Because I bumped images, or the intern, I watched him bump image when he was looking it up, and I was like, is that a picture of Carson Wentz when you Googled Tim Tebow? But same number. That makes sense.
I'm surprised you know Carson Wentz's number.
I may or may not have watched a YouTube documentary on the downfall of Carson Wentz recently. It was very enjoyable. She Good Sports, shout out. She Got Sports. She Got Sports. It's a YouTube channel. Sports documentary stuff. Very good. Giants fan, so that's unfortunate for her, but, still.
So, sorry, you said, do you think the book influenced you to keep on playing through the injury, or do you think, because I know that's a big thing in football, it's like, oh, man up, tough it up. Would you say some of it was like, it gotta be like Tim. Like, what would Tim do?
What would Tim do? No, I mean, it is like playing football. I could go on and on about how I think high school coaches are absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
And they only get paid like $200 a season to coach, and I feel like they're pushing kids way too hard, and they're I could have got insanely hurt, and they saw me limping, and they didn't take me out.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
hey, at least
generally, it just it pushed me into wanting to be a better football player.
Mm-hmm. Hey, at least I got rid of 2-a-days in the Oklahoma drill, right? That helps.
Yeah. We definitely. When did they get rid of that? Because
what's the Oklahoma drill?
So the Oklahoma drill, you'd have it's a one-on-one drill. You had one person have the ball, one person trying to tackle him, but you start out on your back. The coach blows a whistle. You turn over, and then you have to get past the other person or tackle the other person.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
I actually didn't mind it unless I was going up against our actual player, the person that could have actually done well in football. Then and he sweat a lot, so as soon as you hit him, you just be drenched in this man's sweat. But yeah, I guess I think a lot of head-to-head injuries happen in concussions, so
that makes sense.
I don't know if it was outright banned or it was just hey, we need to move on from this.
It's a dumb drill because how you're not going to start on your back in the game.
That's what you think. If you slip on the turf or on the grass,
well, because that's the end of the. If you have the ball, that's the end of the. That's the end of the game. Or
not if you're in the NFL, baby. Anybody. They're training you from the beginning. Yeah, I know. I get you.
Fun stuff.
Number 3s.
Tim Tebow was also homeschooled.
Oh,
yes, he was.
He also has some sermons you can go listen to.
He's a pretty compelling speaker, so I'd be interested to hear those.
Yeah, one of the sports personalities I listen to has a clip from him that he'll kind of use randomly, somewhat in a mocking sense. But
I was gonna say,
yeah,
we can save my opinions on Perna for another time, though. So
hey, that curse wheel.
Hey, yeah, you never know. Number 3s.
Yeah, man, this list was hard for me. I'm gonna
hold up.
I'm gonna stop you right there. I have editing power, which means I have. Really, what's behind this is when we were recording this podcast, I ended up switching up the top part of my list. I thought of something like, oh no, that'd actually be my number 1. So things got shuffled, and what I would have replaced this number 3 with, if the list would have been how I wanted it come the end of the pod, I would have put this instead of my number 3, which is the Star Wars original trilogy, which we kind of hit on. I kind of hit on with my Last Jedi, but I kind of dived a little bit more into it. But since there's not really much more to add, because we kind of talked about it a little bit with Last Jedi, I'm like, I really wish I would have thrown this one there instead, because again, last minute switch. So I'm gonna say Lord of the Rings was one of the things that best stories that had an influence on my life, especially as a kid. I wasn't a big book reader until recently, so as a kid, a young kid, my first introduction to Lord of the Rings was the 1978 animated film, which, if you know anything, it's Ooh, it's a choice. They retrograde the movie, so that's they filmed everything and then animated on top of it, or filmed some scenes and animated on top of it for I think a good amount of scenes. But oh boy, it is interesting, especially coming from the perfection that later was. Well, not perfection, but the such a high standard, basically perfection. I mean, nothing's perfect when it comes to movies, but as close to perfection as you can get for an adaptation of a movie. Yeah, some of the hardcore book fans don't like Peter Jackson's thing, but oh, that's such a big difference. But this Lord of the Rings is what kicked off my love into fantasy, which as a kid, even though Star Wars was my biggest fandom, I'm like, yeah, I called it sci-fi. Some people would argue that Star Wars isn't sci-fi, but the technology, I'm like, that's cool, but I still like, swords and shields and bows and arrows, and really nothing really captivated me until like Lord of the Rings and the story and everything, and that just kind of kicked off my love. And Legend of Zelda, I'm going to throw in Legend of Zelda 2, one reason why I also liked all that stuff. Really just kind of blossomed into my love for fantasy now and epic fantasy and all that, and just that, man, it was such a big part of my life. And I didn't watch those as a kid, probably wouldn't even be as close to fantasy as I am now. So all that to say, those played a big part of my life and kind of inspired to my taste now and everything. Mike, what's your number 3?
So I'm gonna pull an audible, but it's more of a to keep things tonally different. So really, this should be my number 2. But I'm gonna go with Peter's arc, or Simon's arc rather, in the Chosen TV show. I've read the Bible, I've read all the Gospels, right? Like nothing in this show is anything new in terms of the things that happen in the Bible, but it's the things that they kind of invent for the show that you kind of look at and you go, well, that's definitely not in the text, but it's plausible and it doesn't contradict anything and it's culturally likely. I really identify with that character, charisma, but also having his foot in his mouth at all times and somehow like balancing that line. That rings true all day long for me. I dream of someday having biceps like Peter in The Chosen. But also just like the way he's so passionate about what he does, even when it's he's trying to pay off his taxes at the beginning of the show, and he's just, culture won't stop him, religion won't stop him. He's just determined to fix this problem on his own. And then when he starts following Jesus, he's just as gung-ho about doing the Jesus thing, and he's so bad at it. But he's trying so hard, and it's such a beautiful thing to watch as the character grows and starts to like really come into himself. I'm a huge fan of it. And in the first season, he's got all this conflict with Matthew, and there's this point where Jesus sends Peter and Matthew off to go take care of something together, and I'm so used to watching TV that I was like, oh, cool, something big is going to happen. They're going to have to get through it together. Peter and Matthew will get along. No, it takes 4 seasons for them to get through their stuff, because it's actually a realistic show where they don't just spoon feed you TV solutions to problems. You actually have to watch people slowly grow and improve. And Peter's growth and Peter's marriage are just 2 beautiful things that I would love to strive to have something equivalent in my life.
Where can you watch The Chosen? I don't remember, isn't it?
For free on the Chosen app. It's on your phone. It's on any streaming device you have, more or less. And it doesn't cost you a cent.
Wasn't it originally on YouTube?
Yes.
Have you seen it, Lou?
No. It's also, I think it's on Hulu as well.
Yeah, it's on a couple of services, but they have it on their own app for free, so that anyone can watch it, and not have to pay for it. Crowdfunded, and I got a hoodie and a TV and a shirt, and I'm probably gonna get another shirt just because, like, I love the show. I want to be able to chip in, and I really like the shirts that they're going with. So
Nice.
Very cool.
Lou, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is, if I didn't pick anime, I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to myself. So the story that I'm picking is in Naruto. Full Metal Alchemist. No,
he hasn't seen
that's
that.
That's a really. Man, these podcasts are kind of hard to explain, like, because you're explaining a story. So, like, you have to. There's like sportsmanship or like omenship of it, But I'll do the best I can. But I'm doing this a disservice. So Shikamaru is my favorite character in Naruto. He's been my favorite character from the get. I love his, like, I don't care attitude with everything. So, like a cool thing, just to explain the character a little bit, because I think it helps a lot. So his village is getting under attack, and his president, I would say, is getting jumped, and he is going to die. Like, everybody sees it, everybody knows that he's not going to win. And while all this is happening, and there's like absolute destruction and murder, somebody cast a spell. I'll just say that because I feel like it's easier to say that. Cast a spell on everybody to fall asleep. Now, all the strong ninjas know how to, like, combat that, and they just can keep doing their thing. Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, it's a first level spell, and everybody's.
We've got too much HP. It doesn't work.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Robert. You're being a great DM even in this. And so the people who can't handle the spell are passed out, and like Shikamaru absolutely passed out. And so a couple episodes go in, and we find out that Shikamaru he was faking it. It wasn't. He just didn't want to fight anymore. So he was like, I'm just gonna play dead, play asleep, and nobody would have to bother me. So that's the kind of character that he is, and I absolutely adore him for that. And so he grows up and he becomes actually wicked smart and actually a great ninja. He ends up, like, helping his village out a lot. He finds out his why, pretty much. And he has a sensei called Asuma. Asuma is the son of the president who died. And so he's always been in kind of a royalty situation in leadership, and has found purpose in Shikamaru. I say all this, but I think it helps. And so Asuma dies right in front of Shikamaru in a fight. I know. Naruto's been out for so long. Baruto is a thing now. Don't watch it. Yes, so Asuma dies, and right in front of Shikamaru, and Shikamaru feels like he could have done something about it, but he just couldn't save his sensei. And there's a scene where Shikamaru is mourning his pretty much his father, and I guess in a sense his sensei. And his real father comes in, and he's like, "Come play a game with me." And it's a game that him and his sensei played all the time. And so as they're playing it, you can see that Shikamaru is just mourning, just extreme mourning, but he doesn't know what to do with it. He's just struggling to have feelings. And as they continue the game, his father's asking him really hard questions, and he's asking him questions about who his killer was, and it gets to the point where Shikamaru breaks down and crying, and he slams the pieces to the floor, and his father, he lets him cry. He lets it all out, and he closes the door so he can cry in peace. And his father says at the end, "I'll pick up the pieces for you." And oh my gosh, as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old boy, that hit so hard for me. I've just always been known for bottling up emotions, and this is like watching something that I absolutely love share that, because before that I was watching Pokemon. Pikachu ain't crying like that. This is like real emotion. Movie.
Sorry, I'll stop.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. No, I respect it. And it does get sad. Shout out to Ash getting put in a stone. It's the stone, right?
Yeah, he gets stoned.
He gets stoned. Yeah. Don't do drugs, kids. So yeah. Very well, very demure, very mindful. That's it.
Okay, hold on. What is this trend? I'm hearing this everywhere. Help me out. I'm internet illiterate.
I don't know. I just say things to make it sound like I'm still with
What trend are you talking about?
The demure, mindful, whatever.
The white women are loving it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
It's like you and your bourgeois?
The bourgeois. All right, whatever. Moving on. Somebody let me know in the comments.
Yeah. It's too complicated for the intern.
Number 2?
He doesn't speak French. Yeah, what's number 2's? Yes, yeah. Go watch Naruto. If you haven't. How many seasons is it?
Oh, don't watch Naruto.
100 episodes?
Don't watch Naruto.
Okay, don't watch it, I guess.
It's like 500 episodes.
All right, don't do it.
Watch One Piece instead.
Well, no, don't watch One Piece either.
Watch the live action One Piece.
Don't watch that either. Gosh, no, please.
Watch
the manga.
Alchemist, and if you're gonna watch Naruto, skip all the spoiler, which is like 80% of the show.
Be on the lookout for Lou's Naruto watching guide for all the toppers out there.
Just Google it. I'm not your dad. Google it.
So my number 2, it's two things, but it's the same subject matter, and I talked about it when we were talking about our favorite novels. But one of them is going to be Night by Eleazar. If it's in the German, it'd be Vessel. And then along with that, Schindler's List. It's just those are yeah. Well, so obviously, if you don't know what those are about, Night is a first-hand account of someone who went through a concentration camp during the Holocaust, and Schindler's List is also about the Holocaust. They're just two. I'm not going to say art, but they're two works, I guess media. Book is a media. They're the two mediums. There we go. That deal with the story of the Holocaust and just the atrocities that happen. And they're those type of things where I'm like, I am so glad I read it or watched it, but I have no interest in watching it again. It makes you reflect on humanity and history as a whole. And I feel like after watching that, especially if you're a visual person, Schindler's List does a I mean, it's a great job of visualizing, but it's terrible at the same time because, it's based off of the actual footage and, the real events that happen. And it just makes you realize, like, just some of the evil in the world. And, like, man, it's just so gut-wrenching, especially in the end of Schindler's List, where he's like, he did all this good saving these Jewish people, but, like, all he can think about is he could have saved more. And it's a gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching. And it makes you just reflect on humans and, as a whole in morals and like how can society get there. And I think if you read or watch these, you're not going to be the same person on the other end of it, and hopefully it makes you ask some good questions and you become a better person and a more moral person through those experiences.
I feel like I didn't have anything to say the last time we talked about this book because it's so heavy.
Have you seen Schindler's List or no?
I have not seen Schindler's List. I've seen the episode of Seinfeld where Jerry goes to watch Schindler's List.
Was it a very similar thing? Glad he watched it, but wouldn't watch it again?
I believe he was very glad he watched it, but he was very upset that Newman caught him making out with his girlfriend the whole time.
Yeah, that would be
And then because Newman is his rival, he goes and tells his parents that he caught Jerry. The term they used was necking. And so he comes back to his house and his parents are staying with him and they're like, "You were necking during Schindler's List?"
Yeah, it doesn't really put you in the mood,
No.
It's quite it's the opposite of putting in the mood.
Aren't they Jewish as well?
Yes.
Yeah, it's wild. That's wild, homie.
Have you seen it, Lou?
Schindler's List?
Yeah.
No. Kind of.
Parts
I
of
watched the highlights. Yeah.
That's just out of context. That sounds so wrong. I watched the highlights of Schindler's List. Depending on who you're talking to, can be meaning completely different things. But that's too dark-sided for this. Mike, what's your number 2?
My number 2, I cannot believe this is my number 2. And at the same time, it was the first thing I thought when you mentioned this this topic is Cobra Kai season 4.
Oh my gosh.
I showed Lou the first episode and he hated it.
Well, he wouldn't like this anymore. No, we don't normally talk about politics on this show. And so I'll keep it brief. But Cobra Kai season 4 completely and utterly changed the way I view politics. And I am going to go to my grave, I suspect, thinking that it is forever the greatest political analogy in all of American history. Essentially, at this point in the show, spoilers for Cobra Kai. If you haven't seen it yet and you want to, go watch it, come back. It'll only take you a few days. If it's for you, you'll be hooked right away and you'll binge the whole thing. If it's not, you'll learn real quick and you'll be fine. So at this point in the show, John Kreese has taken over Cobra Kai away from Johnny, and he has brought Terry Silver from Karate Kid 3 to come help him out. Cobra Kai is stronger than ever, and Johnny has to start a new dojo and eventually teams up with Daniel LaRusso to combat Cobra Kai. But the problem is the two of them have such incredibly different styles, both in karate and in personality, and they're constantly clashing. So it takes the whole season for them to finally fully mesh and let their students practice both Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang karate at the same time in order to combat the evil that is Cobra Kai. And it's this just painfully on the nose. I'm pretty sure it came out like in or right before an election year, where it's like one dojo is a little too gung-ho and a little too aggressive, and their primary color is red, and the other dojo, their primary color is blue, and they're a little too sensitive and way too defensive about things. And it's like, you got to take the good of one and the good of the other and blend them and find a good medium in order to push back against the actual problems that exist instead of just demonizing the other person. And I thought it was just such a beautiful political analogy where it's like we were at this point in our society where I've actually started to see it lessen a little bit. Even in a new election cycle, there's just way more calm. Not everywhere, but in general. Probably because we have Cobra Kai season 4.
That's it.
But like, just in general, it's like, man, this dogmatic attachment we have to one side or the other, where it's like, I'm gonna just lock in on the right or lock in on the left, and I'm just gonna blindly hate the other side, is ridiculous, and it makes no sense. And both sides have benefits, and most people are gonna lean further one way or the other. But I think there's just way more health to be had if you sit in the middle, you actually observe what both sides have to offer, and you take the good and you refuse the bad, and then you build your own ideology out of it. Then you can actually start to address real problems that are happening. And as cheesy as it is, and as cheesy as it was, because my goodness, the primary factor that makes Cobra Kai good is cheese. I think it's actually very insightful. It's just cheese coated, so it goes down easier.
It was too cheesy for Lou.
Too cheesy. I'm lactose intolerant to that stuff.
Mike, I can't be expected to have a conversation with someone who holds different beliefs than me. Come on. This is 2024. Right?
Peace.
Yeah, I never watched past season 1. You said season 2 was more of a team drama, and I'm like, I don't want to watch that. So
it does focus more on the kids. It was really good. Season 2 was probably the best season. Season 3 learned the wrong lessons. Season 4 was excellent but cheesy. Season 5 was fine. Season 6 was kind of unnecessary, but still pretty good. And in the process, but since neither of you have watched it, we can move along.
What's your number 2, Lou?
I'm having a hard time figuring out what my number 1 and my number 2 is. So I'll just do this one. So my first year senior staffing, you get I think 2 weeks of training. Right, Rob?
That sounds right. It's like a week of main training, like main just classes and such, and then like a week of basically volunteer work with some training, I think,
Yes.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so it's the first week of training. I'm surprised I get the job in the first place. It's so I'm and everybody really kind of knows everybody, and it's kind of weird. And I only know a handful of people, and I went here, but I didn't work. Never worked here. I never junior staff, so I was like, I don't think I belong here. But I mean, it's a job, so I'm just gonna stay here, and I really enjoy Bear Lake. And so my first week of training, Joe, I could not get a read on Joe, our boss. Very stone edge kind of guy. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, stoic, not super
Stoic.
emotional.
Yes.
Off the
Not
cuff, I think
emotional,
he can
very-
be once you get to know him, but when you first meet him, you're like, he
Yes.
doesn't show much emotion.
Bottom of the barrel at the end, but in the beginning, it's like, okay, I'm not sure about you. But one of the most impactful things he's ever said to me, anybody's ever said to me, especially dealing with kids, is that he told a story about. I don't know if he was in the story or if he overheard the story. I don't remember them, but he said that two counselors were on a hill, and a small group of kids were walking past the hill, and one of the counselors pulled his pants down and mooned the little kids. And the counselor got really in trouble, and he got fired. And he looked us dead in the eye and said, if you do something like that, I don't know if you're stupid or if you're a pedophile, and I'm not going to ask you which one it is. I'm just going to fire you. And if you do something worse, the law might be involved. And in my whole body just changed. I feel like right then I just became an adult. Because I am stupid, and I do stupid things, and I don't want to be perceived as a pedophile. And that has carried me through today. I'm not going to let anybody either figure out, I'm not going to moon anyone, or be even close to anything stupid like that. And then no sarcasm, because kids don't understand it, and you'll just come off as an asshole.
That's why you don't put me in junior's cabin.
So that's an impactful story for me.
And always follow the 2 adult rule, as Mike said on our very first podcast.
Yeah, it can get sketchy if you don't.
I do not remember that story whatsoever.
Oh, it is stuck to this day.
Remember the Frozone, and then everyone thought your name was Lucius.
It's good that you remember the more important things in life, Robert. Yeah. Yeah. Hindsight 2020. I probably shouldn't have made a joke like that, but hey, it turned out well.
What, the Lucius joke?
The Lucius joke, yeah. If nobody knows who you are, fun fact. I mean, since you bring it up, we were playing a game. It's a story game where you say one word at a time. I think.
One sentence.
Right, Robert. One sentence at a time. And nobody knew who I was. And so I said, Lucius the cat. My name is Lucian. And then I saw everybody's faces in their head. Is this Lucius or Lucian? We're not sure.
It's like he named the cat after himself. I don't know. It's like one of the ones where you continue the story, you add a sentence on, and you make the story at the end. So Lucian made the main character Lucius the cat. And it threw everyone off for that week. That's probably what I was thinking when Joe was telling that story. Is his name Lucian or Lucius? Just befuddling me that whole week.
I'm a befuddler. What can I say?
It's his title on the pod, the befuddler. My number one, it's kind of a media thing as a whole, which I guess I kind of did with the Star Wars, the original trilogy. I don't know if I clarified that or not, but for me growing up, one thing me and my mom would always do, especially like come dinner time and car rides, we'd always listen to Adventures in Odyssey. And through that, you learn a lot of definitely like wholesome Christian stories and everything. And just kind of through osmosis, I learned random things like a lot of biblical stories and all that. And it in middle school and high school, like, how do you know this random Bible story? I'm like, you know, it's Adventures in Odyssey. So like, especially before like I really got serious into the reading the Bible and all that, I just kind of absorbed a lot of the stories and, you know, things like that. And then I like it because a lot of times reading just on a page, it can get kind of dull and boring. But like, you know, they spruce it up, and it is an audio drama. But either way, you're taking it in, and they kind of personalize it. I don't know, humanize it, kind of like what the Prince of Egypt did to Moses. Like it's a lot easier when you have more like character moments to relate to the story and like care about it than just reading it off a page. So I'd say just a lot of that definitely like helped me a lot, especially in my faith. You know, you learn a lot of the quote unquote heroes of faith and things that I don't think I would have been as strong as a Christian, especially at a younger age, or like, you know, as knowledgeable, and that knowledge has, you know, helped me a lot growing up. So I think that's definitely one of the most impactful things that I just kind of gathered through osmosis and listening to it for so long.
Yeah, man, Odyssey was fantastic.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Got the first 50 volumes right on CDs over here.
Nice. Now they hold up pretty well.
Yeah, I'd be interested to go back. I've only listened to a few here and there, but obviously the big one that I always point to is Castles and Cauldrons. Wonder what that was trying to be, and just they put like a demonic force behind that, because I guess all nerds around a table are burning candles and goats, and, you know, have pentagrams everywhere. But yeah, I wonder how much like of the more cultural things would hold up today. But yeah, definitely like the Bible stories and all that hold up.
Yeah, I mean they're for kids, so like I'm not binging them, but they're not bad. Mm-hmm. A couple at a time.
Yeah. I do think they did also kind of grow up with the kids too. Like they did get a little more mature as their audience grew, because, you know, you grew up with it. So you, like, I don't know, it just seems like that through some of the more original storytelling. But it's been so long. Mike, what's your number one?
So my number one is I'm not entirely sure how to frame this still, but one of my favorite storytelling techniques is when you think you understand the story, and then you get one missing piece of information, and it totally kind of shifts your perspective on the whole story. And so my grandmother died in her 50s of early onset Alzheimer's. It came in really harsh. Like she had a really severe case. What normally takes 10 years or so to knock you out took her out in about 2 once it really started progressing. And my dad, or my mom and dad, they sold their house in Allen Park. They got a bigger house in Westland, and they expected to have my grandparents move in with us, and that's why we bought a bigger house with an extra room. But then it progressed so quickly that we didn't like they were like, we can't really move her out of the house. And so initially it was this stressful thing, because it was like, oh, there's going to be some financial, help, because my grandparents are going to move in, and so like my grandpa's probably going to throw some money our way, and so like it'll be easier to afford this house that we otherwise would have got something smaller, but now they're not moving in, so it was like this stressful thing. And then my dad would tell this sermon where my Uncle Paul, his entire life just kind of hit rock bottom, and he ended up moving in with us and started going to church, and totally turned his life around. And so my dad tells this story about sitting with my grandma and my mom in the waiting room of the waiting to get the diagnosis. And at that point, we could all tell something was going on in her head. And it was less of a, is this going to be a positive or negative diagnosis, and more of a, what is it that is affecting her? And my grandma turned to them and she said, listen, it really doesn't matter what the doctors come back and say. If Jesus can find a way to reach even one of my kids through this, I'll be so happy. And the reason my parents were able to have my Uncle Paul come live with us is because they got this bigger house expecting to house my grandma, who then took such a turn that she couldn't, and then we had this extra room that we were able to give to Paul. And over the years, I've heard Paul preach this message, and one by one, he's been able to say, my younger brother John is now going to church, and he's an active participant on the worship team. And most recently, he sent me the message that he preached a variation on, and I got to say my older sister Jenny, has been every Sunday this whole year. She's called me on Sunday morning, and we've talked about what we've been reading that week. And all of Joanne's kids have come to faith, and it started, with this extra room. And I was talking to my mom a couple months ago, and I had some pretty crazy stuff going on, and I was telling her this story and all the stuff Paul had said, and my mother and I are famously unemotional people, and both of us are like doing our best to keep it together and not cry. And she told me a story I'd never heard in my entire life up to that point. And she had been feeling guilty for the last decade plus, 14 years about, maybe more, because when my grandma was still perfectly sane, the two of them sat down and they prayed hard, and they said, God, whatever it takes, please bring Joe's kids to you. And my mom told me this story where she's been carrying this feeling of guilt because she felt like she prayed for the thing that killed my grandma. And that story hit me like a ton of bricks, but the thing that I walked away from it with was just the unbelievable beauty of Joanne's prayer, right? Just those three words, whatever it takes. And I got people in my life who mean just the world to me, who are far from God right now. And that prayer, God, whatever it takes, has been keeping me afloat on some of these nights. And I know you guys, and I'm sure listeners have people in their life that mean the world to them who are far from God right now. And that story is something that's been weighing on my mother as guilt. But hearing it has brought just a drive and a prayer to my life that has been such a huge blessing. And so it was really cool to hear something that for her was this terribly painful thing, but it recontextualized the story for me in a way that made it even more affirming and gives me hope in what Jesus can do for people.
Dang. Don't really got much to add there.
Yeah.
Good luck following that up, Lou, with your number one.
Yeah, okay.
Nice. Thanks for sharing, though.
I guess, yeah, thanks for sharing. Every time you share that story, it gets better and better.
Well, I practiced it this time because I knew I was going to do it in front of people.
Yeah, it's way better than the hippie chick story. It doesn't Yeah. So, I've been a Christian for about a little over 10 years. I think 11 years, actually. So that's pretty cool. And I sat in quite a bit of sermons. And if you ask me how many sermons I actually remember, I would say probably last week's a little bit, and the one that I care about the most. So, yeah. So my favorite sermon of all time has to do with Chick-fil-A, and I think that is one of the reasons why I like it so much. I'm not gonna lie, but it is the one who preached it is one of my favorite people of all time, Dan, my youth pastor. and I don't even remember what biblical passage she even used to connect it, but it is something that I've tried to hold really hard in my heart. Hell, hold hard to my heart? Hmm, I'm not a writer. Um, so the story goes is that Dan and his friend was eating at Chick-fil-A, and he saw a piece of trash in a pretty like high walkable area. There's another way to say that, but I think you guys
High
would get
traffic
it.
area.
High traffic area. Thank you so much. Uh, and he's staring at instead of eating his food, he's staring at this trash, and he's staring at it and staring at it. And he's getting to the point where he's getting frustrated because it's such a high traffic area and nobody's picking up the trash. Not even the my pleasure people.
Employees?
Yes, I thought
I
it
prefer my pleasure people.
My pleasure people.
Yes, my pleasure, people. Can you bring me another Coca-Cola, please?
And he's not even eating the food at this point. He's just staring at this trash. And then it dawned on him, I should pick up the trash. It's me. And so he got up, picked up the trash, and threw it away, and sat down and enjoyed his food. And he said sometimes it's just going to have to be your job. And that's just kind of how it is. And though you want other people to do that job for you, sometimes God calls you to do that job. And it could be picking up trash. It could be doing a chore that you hate for your wife. It could be mentoring a kid that you find extremely annoying. But God gave you this chore. And it's your job to do it. And I've avoided responsibility my whole life. I didn't get a cell phone until I was like 17. I got offered a cell phone when I was like 15, and I said, nope, I'm going to lose it, so there's no point in me having one. And that has been something that I've been combating my whole life. I just don't want responsibility. It is only recently, after being married for 6 years, I've want to be a father. Before that, could not imagine what it'd be like to be a dad. But yeah, and I should be grateful that God gives me things to tend. To tend to. I should be grateful to do the dishes so that my family can eat off of clean plates. Like, it's just something that I've really put to my heart. So yeah, that's my number one.
That's crazy. Today, in my Bible in a year, there's the story of Isaiah, when he has his moment in heaven. He's like, here I am, Lord, send me. And that kind of hit me. I'm like, man, I am not someone who like is quick to volunteer or stuff. I'm like, someone else has got that, I'm comfortable here. And it's very similar. It's like, yeah, I need to be more intentional stepping up. Like I need to be the one willing to do stuff. So that's crazy that story is like basically what I was reading today, and it's very similar.
Mm-hmm. It's funny too. The pastor, not this past Sunday, but 9 days ago, he was like, "Yeah, if God ever says, hey, I want you to be one of my prophets, you should just straight up ask him for a different job, please, because you do not want that job.
It won't lay on your side for 2 years."
Right.
All right. Well, I think we're getting pretty close on time here. Mike's has to go. So, Mike, what are we talking about next week?
Oh, I'm trying to choose between two. Let me see. Paste. There we go. Let's go with your top 5 hidden gems. So whether it's a book, a movie, a game, a restaurant, an album, whatever, I want your top 5 underrated anythings.
Sounds
Or
good.
just think, yeah.
Sounds good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Restaurant really opens my brain up to things.
Right? Yeah. Anything that you think needs more attention.
I'm gonna tell you right now, the Doritos Locos in your cheesy gordita crunch. Little known fact, you can do that. Delicious. It's not gonna be on my list, but I will mention right there. I
I've
like
been doing that since like 2018.
You're a Pathfinder, or what's that's not Pathfinder.
Trailblazer.
Yeah, Trailblazer.
It's the other Nissan car.
There you go. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Top Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know what one of your one of the stories that influenced you the most as a kid or as an adult, whatever it may be. We'd love to hear from you. Leave us a like, comment, subscribe. Also, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. I didn't mean to bring it up, but we're looking for help just making some clips in the YouTube video. So actually, YouTube has a feature. If you on computer, you can hover your mouse over it. I think there's just a button that says clip, and you can clip it, send it to us in our Discord or at our email at thetop.podcast@gmail.com, and we can post it and give you a shout out and everything. So do that, and that help us a lot. But obviously, we understand you have a busy time, and we also have big time. So any help would be appreciated, but don't feel like you have to. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review, leave us a comment, read off on the pod. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll catch you next time.
Shalom.
You can't shalom your and
Actually,
shalom.
nope. In Hebrew, that is the greeting and goodbye. So
Yeah, no, but
it's like,
out.
it's like
but
Hawaii.
you're not. Yeah, I knew that would come up.
Aloha.
Oh, by the way, Lou, when you have a sweatshirt that says aim high and you leave it with an unfortunate fold, it makes it look to your parents like you have a sweatshirt that says I'm high.
I mean, what's wrong with that? I like being high on the Lord. Yeah, also, like,
high on the
you
spirit.
didn't move it?
No, I did move it, but I was just like, whoop. That's it's a momentary. I was like, I don't. This isn't mine. Oh wait, there's an A.